Welcome to Bahasa Indonesia Lesson 3. Again, all taken from out of this book here, How to Master the Indonesian Language. Details that have been posted earlier. So these lessons are taken straight from out of this book, and I will expand where it's needed, and I'll also explain things that are perhaps a little bit obsolete now. So, personal pronouns. Saya for I, saya. Aku less formal. Stick with saya and you'll never have a problem. You can also use your own name, funnily enough. When we say, I'm going somewhere, you can say, John mau pergi. John wants to go. John is leaving. John mau pergi, even for yourself. So that's another way of saying, addressing yourself, is using your own name. Second person, we have words here that are familiar. That is, when you're very familiar with someone, you hear people say, kamu, not so much engkau. Engkau you hear in songs an awful lot. I never use the word kamu. You'll find that the word you is almost never used. If you have to use the word you, stick with anda. I find that the word you in Indonesian requires a thesis. There is so much baggage associated with this one word of what you call you. It's a very, very interesting subject. So stick with anda. It's a word that was invented to supersede all these other problems and complexities. It was became popular during the 70s, actually. Saudara, outdated. It's a bit outmoded. You don't hear people being addressed as saudara. Tuan, nyonya, and nona, delete entirely. They are words left over from the colonial period of the Dutch. We never hear these terms just about anymore. Occasionally, you might get some person addressing you as tuan, but forget them. To avoid confusion, foreigners are advised to use these last three words. Well, that's outdated. Forget that. Besides the above mentioned, Indonesians use other words for the second person singular. When we address a person who's older than us by a generation, or a respectful term for a man, bapak, quite often reduced to just pak. Ibu, or just bu for a woman. Ayah, ayah, more commonly bapak. Ayah, maybe in some areas of Indonesia you might hear, but bapak is more common. Ibu, paman, for an uncle, paman. Kakak, for an older sister usually. It usually refers to older sister, kakak, rather than older brother. Adik, for a younger brother or sister. Bibi, for aunt. And it says here the person's name. By far the most common way of addressing someone in Indonesia is actually using just their name. So, mau kemana, John? Where do you want to go? John. Mau kemana, John? John, mau kemana? Very common. So it says here, notice the varieties in these sentences. Well, they're very straightforward. Where do you want to go? Din. Kamu mau kemana? Very commonly heard. Saudara, forget tuan, nyonya, nona, but bapak, bibi, John are all very common when you use a person's name. In fact, using a person's name is better than probably anything. So the word you in Indonesian, funnily enough, is very, very rarely used. Would you come tomorrow, please? Silakan, bapak datang besok. Do you live here, madam? Apa ibu tinggal di sini? Now, most commonly, the Indonesians would drop the apa and just use ibu tinggal di sini. With it rising inflection, it would be obviously a question. Ibu tinggal di sini. Much more common than apa or apakah is another way of saying the same thing. The word anda, it says here, is the equivalent of the English word you, and has become popular. Very true. If you have to use the word you, use anda. It avoids all complications and offence. The word for he or she in third person is dia. Almost never do you hear the word ia. So it's got that in brackets. So dia. Beliau is used for people like the president or ministers or very, very respected people in society when you want to address them as he or she. Beliau, you don't hear it very much at all. Stick with dia, you can't go wrong. Unless, of course, you're dining with the president. The words for we, kami is used when we exclude the person we're talking to, and kita includes the person we're talking to. But don't worry too much about that, because if you get that wrong, they will understand. They quite often get it wrong themselves. It's vague. So I wouldn't put too much emphasis on the differentiation between those two words. Kami or kita, it will be understood in context. The word plural for you, not used very much. Kalian, if you have to, it's not used very much. Kalian. Third person plural, mereka. Strong E on the second one, mereka. Mereka itu, you don't hear that very much. Just stick with mereka. So, mereka datang dengan pesawat terbang. They came by plane. Keluarga mereka ada di sini. Their families are here. These exercises are very straightforward. Saya malas, ibu mandi, tuan pergi. And all of these words will be learnt from the following page, which is the vocabulary. So I'll go through the vocabulary. I'm expecting that anyone listening to this has already bought this book because all these lessons are in conjunction with it. So the adjectives: banyak, much or many; berat, heavy; besar, big; bodoh, stupid, probably the worst thing you could possibly call an Indonesian. Dekat is near. Gelap is dark. Jauh is far. Kecil, small. Kuat, strong. Mahal, expensive. We'll use that word an awful lot in Indonesia. Malas, lazy. Mudah, easy. Another word that they use for easy more commonly is gampang. Murah, cheap. Panjang, long. Pendek, short. Two stressed E's. Pendek, short. Pintar, smart. Quite often heard as pintar, more commonly in fact. Rajin, hardworking or industrious. Rendah, low. Ringan, light. Watch the pronunciation of that word, ringan. We don't hear the G very strong at all because it's only one G. Sedikit, for a few. Quite often just dikit. Susah, sukar, for difficult. Sulit is another word, also for difficult. Terang is clear. Also, when a person understands something, like we use the word in English, to be clear on something, terang. Tinggi, double G, tinggi, for tall. The colours: biru, blue. Coklat, brown. Hijau, green, quite often pronounced hijau. The AU at the end of a word sometimes tends to an O sound. Hijau or hijau. Hitam for black. Kuning for yellow. Merah for red. Rah in High Balinese means blood, so I guess there's an association there. Merah for red. Putih for white. And warna is colour. Warna-warni is many colours. The verbs: datang, to come or arrive. Duduk, to sit. Makan, to eat. Mandi, to wash oneself. Masuk, enter. Minum, to drink. pergi, to go. Pulang, to go home. In one word, pulang means to go home, where you're from. Tidur, sleep, and tinggal, to reside, to stay. Tinggal is to reside. So hopefully they all help. We'll go on to lesson 4 next lesson. Try and get a hold of that book, the details of which appear in lesson 1.1. And good luck with it all. Selamat.